move on and we can talk about Everton, Pete, because it sounds like there's been some movement potentially with replacing Amadou, Onana potentially. Can you give us an update, please, on the potential options in midfield they'll be looking at this summer to replace Onana?
Yeah, obviously, I think Everton have been preparing to lose Onana for most of this summer, as we've previously spoken on the pod, and he is inching closer to that move to Aston Villa. Yeah, Calvin Phillips is an obvious candidate out there. He's on Everton's list of potential midfield reinforcements. We've spoken previously about Calvin, that he really does need to leave Manchester City this summer to get his career back on track. He'll have been sat at home watching those Euros with envious eyes, probably because it was just 3 years ago when he was probably England's best player at the last Euros before that. So it's been a disappointing time for Phillips since he made that move from Leeds to Manchester City. And again, he went out on loan to West Ham last year, and that was meant to get his career going again. But yeah, that move really backfired, and it didn't work out for either party as well. So yeah, I just think for Everton right now, getting somebody like Phillips for maybe a cut price fee, a hungry player determined to make a mark again, I think he could take a lot of boxes for them. And I think Paul's mentioned before that maybe playing under somebody like Sean Dyche might be the right man to get the best out of Calvin Phillips again as well. And I'm sure if he was to go to Everton, he'd definitely be a big hit with the fans, with his style of play and his competitiveness and his passing range. So I think he could be a good replacement for Amadou Onana. But again, a lot will come down to what Manchester City are demanding for him, or whether they would even be willing to consider another loan for him as well.
What sort of valuation, Pete, would be expected if they are to sell him? Say, what would be or could be agreed between the two clubs?
Well, I think it's pretty certain that Manchester City will have to take a massive hit on him. If that loan move to West Ham had worked out, it would have brought all the suitors to the table and kept his price tag up. You're probably looking around £20 million or so for Calvin Phillips right now if he was to move on a permanent basis. Whether Everton will be willing to go to that, we'd have to wait and see. I don't think there's many other clubs maybe in the Premier League looking at Calvin right now in the summer transfer window. Again, I'm sure there'll be some foreign interest in him, and there's been talk of some Serie A clubs looking at Phillips as well. So I just think for Manchester City, a lot will depend on what they put, what price tag they put on his head, because if they're asking for a lot of money back to try and recoup most of that 40 plus million that they spent on him, I don't see many takers for him. So yeah, it's going to have to be definitely a lower fee than that for clubs to pursue an interest in Phillips. And again, I'm sure the player himself will be desperate to push for a move himself, so he might have to sort of force the issue as well.
We know as well, Pete, that Wilfried Gnonto has been tipped potentially to a move to Everton. There's some other clubs interested. Are the Toffees still interested in the winger? Are they chasing him? And what's the current stance from Leeds' point of view?
Yeah, Everton have been long-term admirers of Wilfried Gnonto. They tried to sign him last summer when Gnonto went on strike to try and force that move away from Leeds. But obviously then he ended up staying at Leeds and did okay in the second half of the season when he was reintegrated into Daniel Farke's side. Everton, I'm sure, would love the opportunity to bring Gnonto to Goodison Park. Sean Dyche has made wide forwards his top priority between now and the end of the window, so Gnonto ticks a lot of boxes for them. I think Leeds, if they got a suitable offer for Wilfried Gnonto, it's something they would definitely be willing to consider. They don't want another situation of having an unhappy player on their books going into the new championship season. They will want everybody singing from the same hymn sheet and ready to focus on trying to win promotion for Leeds as well. So yeah, I think if they were to get 20 plus, close to 25, 30 million pounds, it's something they would definitely consider to cash in on Wilfried Gnonto, and it might allow them to keep some of their other best players if they do receive a fee like that for them to help balance the books as well. And I think they've got Dan James, who's a ready-made, if not better, replacement for Gnonto on that wing as well. So I think if they get a big offer for Gnonto, it's something that Leeds would definitely be open to.
Paul, how much are the club hoping for? What sort of valuation are they looking at? And in terms of maybe a bidding war, is that what the club are holding out? If he is to go, if they are to lose him, is it best that they sort of get multiple offers and consider what would be best on the table? What's your perspective on it?
Clearly, the club are willing to sell a player at auction is the best way. You want 2 or 3 potential suitors and all come into the table and get your best offer. And it's interesting at the moment at Ellen Road, because after the Archie Gray sale, Rodon's obviously come in, and the Red Bull influx of money's come into the club. We expected some kind of, not an exodus. Exodus is the wrong word, but expected to be tested with bids for Somerville, Gnonto, possibly Ruta. Brighton have come in for Ruta. That 30 million bid was rebuffed. And I think if he stays another 6 to 12 months, I think Leeds' fee that they have to pay for him goes up to 35 or 38 million. But the financial situation of the club seems to, it's gone a little bit quiet since the money for Archie Gray's come in, since the Red Bull money's come in. It doesn't necessarily appear at the moment that they're in a huge rush to sell players, which is a good thing, obviously, because you want to keep the nucleus of the squad together, but you want to keep your better players. Somerville, Gnonto and Ruta, if you can sit tight and hold out for prices, if you're not in a position where you need to sell these players, it's obviously going to benefit Leeds. Daniel Farke would obviously want to keep all three of those players. If he can keep two of the three, it would be. I think that would be. He'd be very, very pleased with that. Whether it's Gnonto, Somerville was a Championship Player of the season last year, so he's going to be a difficult one to keep hold of. I think there'll be more bids that come in for the three of those players. Obviously, Brighton have set the bar for Ruta. They're not far away in the valuation between Brighton and Leeds. So that's an interesting one to watch, whether that comes and rears its head again. But actually, Leeds' seemingly financial situation, I think they may be in a better position than that's been reported, and they're not going to have to get low ball offers for these players.
And Pete, to kind of wrap up on it, are we expecting any potential exits from Goodison Park this summer? Who could be leaving Sean Dyche's squad going into the new season?
Yeah, obviously, I think they've done their utmost to keep Jarrod Branthwaite. That'll be a huge boost to the club. So it looks like he will be staying now that Onana's making that move to Aston Villa. That does help balance the books and help with PSR. Other players who maybe are on the fringes at Everton, there's been talk that Beto could potentially leave the club this summer. Again, that might depend on what happens with Dominic Calvert-Lewin's future at Everton, with a few clubs looking at him due to his contract expiring next summer as well. I'd imagine Michael Keane's a player that might be on the move from Everton this summer. He's sort of found himself dropping down the pecking order at Goodison Park, and I think he might want to move on for his career, maybe to be playing regular first-team football at this stage of his career. But I don't think Everton are in any rush to let him go. They've let Ben Godfrey move to Atalanta as well for a decent fee. So they've done some decent business so far, Everton. They have sold Godfrey. Now it looks like Onana's on the verge of a move as well. They'll be looking to keep hold of their best players, the likes of Calvert-Lewin, if they can persuade him to stay. Also, there's been talk that Mykolenko's attracting a bit of interest from Napoli as well. I don't think Sean Dyche would be willing to entertain that. Mykolenko is the first choice left back at Everton, and he has done a good job since joining the club, the Ukrainian as well. So I think right now for Everton, Sean Dyche looking at wide players initially. So until he brings the players in that he wants, I don't imagine he'd be looking to weaken the squad by letting players go.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.